His divine grace. Isi Bhakti Gata Swami
Jai.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Ready. Okay. So it's not going to come up on this, right? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Is this working? Hare Krishna. Ooh. Must have been from last night. Okay. So reading from Canto 2, Chapter 3, text 2 to 7, I believe. No, we'll just do the first thing and then. Oh man, what's going on? Okay. Hare Krishna. Okay. Just. Should I start? Brahma. Vichasha. Kamas. Tu. Yajeta. Brahmana. Patim. Indram. Indriya. Kamas. Tu. Puja. Kamaha. Prajapatin. So should we just chant that first sloka?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways. Brahma Varchasas Kamastu.
Brahma Varchasa Kamastu.
Yajeta Brahmanaha Patim.
Yajeta Brahmanaha Patim.
Indram Indriya Kamastu.
Indram Indriya Kamastu.
Prajakama Prajapatin.
Prajakama Prajapatin.
Brahma Varchasas Kamastu.
Brahma Varchasa Kamastu.
Yajeta Brahmana Patim.
Yajeta Brahmanaha Patim.
Indram Indriya Kamastu.
Indram Indriya Kamastu.
Prajakama Prajapatin.
Prajakama Prajapatin.
Brahma Varchasas Kamastu.
Brahma Varchasa Kamastu.
Yajeta Brahmana Patim.
Yajeta Brahmanaha Patim.
Indram Indriya Kamastu.
Indram Indriya Kamastu.
Prajakama Prajapatin.
Prajakama Prajapatin.
All right.
Brahma Varchasa Kamastu. Yajeta Brahmanaha Patim. Indram Indriya Kamastu.
Yeah. It should be in one of those, that cabinet right there.
Brahma
Like over
Varchasa
there.
Kamastu.
Brahma Varchasa Kamastu.
Yajeta Brahmanaha Patim.
Yajeta Brahmanaha Patim.
Indram Indriya Kamastu.
Indram Indriya Kamastu.
Prajakama Prajapati.
Prajakama Prajapatin.
Brahma Varchasa Kamastu.
Brahma Varchasa Kamastu.
Yajeta Brahmanaha Patim.
Yajeta Brahmanaha Patim.
Indram Indriya Kamastu.
Indram Indriya Kamastu.
Prajakama Prajapati.
Prajakama Prajapatin.
Varchasa Kamastu.
Brahma Varchasa Kamastu.
Yajeta Brahmanaha Patim.
Yajeta Brahmanaha Patim.
Indram Indriya Kamastu.
Indram Indriya Kamastu.
Prajakama Prajapati.
Prajakama Prajapatin.
Brahma Varchasa Kamastu
Brahmavarshasa Kamastu
Yajeta Brahmanapatim
Yajeta Brahmanapatim
Indram Indriya Kamastu
Indram Indriya Kamastu
Raja Kama Prajapatim
Raja Kama Prajapatim.
Anybody else? All right.
Brahmavarshasa Kamastu
Brahmavarshasa Kamastu
Yajeta Brahmanapatim
Yajeta Brahmanapatim
Indram Indriya Kamastu
Indram Indriya Kamastu
Raja Kama Prajapatim
Raja Kama Prajapatim.
All right. Okay, so I'll chant the rest. I'll just chant the full thing. So, Brahma Varchas Kamastu Yajeta Brahmanapatim Indriyam Indriyas Kamastu Praja Kama Prajapatim Devim Mayam Tushi Kamas Tejas Kamo Vibhavasum Vasu Kamo Vasun Rudran Virya Kamo Taviryavan Ananya Kamas Twaiditam Swarga Kamo Dite Sutan Vishvandevan Raja Kama Sajjan Samsadako Visham Ayus Kamo Shvanao Devao Pushti Kama Ilam Yajet Pratishtam Kama Purusho Rodasi Loka Matrayao Rupa Bikamo Gandharvan Striyo Kamo Prasara Urvishim Adipatya Kama Sarvesham Yajeta Parameshtinam Yajam Yadyed Yashas Kama Kosha Kama Prachetasam Vidya Kamastu Girisham Dampatyarta Umam Shatim. All right. Brahma, the absolute. Varchasa, effulgence. Kamahatu, but one who desires in that way. Yajeta, do worship. Brahmanaha, of the Vedas. Patim, the master. Indram, the king of heaven. Indra Kamatu, but one who desires strong sense organs. Praja Kamaha, one who desires many offspring. Prajapatin, the Prajapatis. Devim, the goddess. Mayam, unto the mistress of the material world. Two, but Shri Kamaha, one who desires beauty. Tejaha, power. Kamaha, one who so desires. Vibhavasum, the fire god. Vasu Kamaha, one who wants wealth. Sorry. Vasun, the Vasu demigods. Rudran, the Rudra expansions of Lord Shiva. Virya Kamaha, one who wants to be very strongly built. Atha, therefore. Viryavan, the most powerful. Annad Adya, grains. Kamaha, one who so desires. Two, but. Aditi, the mother of the demigods. Swarga, heaven. Kamaha, so desiring. Adite Sutan, the sons of Aditi. Vishvan, Vishvadev. Devan, demigods. Raja Kamaha, those who hanker for kingdoms. Sadhyan, the Sadhya demigods. Samsadhakaha, that fulfills the wishes. What fulfills the wishes? Sorry. Vishvam of the mercantile community. Ayukamaha, desirous of long life. Ashvino, the two demigods known as the Ashvini brothers. Devo, the two demigods. Pushtikamaha, one who desires a strongly built body. Ilam, the earth. Yajet, must worship. Pratishta Kamaha, one who desires good fame or stability in a post. Purushaha, such men. Rodasi, the horizon. Lokamacharao, and the earth. Rupa, beauty. Abhikamaha, positively aspiring for. Gandharvan, the residents of the Gandharva planet who are very beautiful and are expert in singing. Sri Kamaha, one who desires a good wife. Apsara or Vishim, the society girls of the heavenly kingdom. Adipatya Kamaha, one who desires to dominate others. Sarvesham, everyone. Yajeta, must worship. Parameshtinam, Brahma, the head of the universe. Yajnam, the personality of Godhead. Yajet, must worship. Yashakamaha, one who desires to be famous. Kosha Kamaha, one who desires a good bank balance. Prachetasam, the treasure of heaven known as Varuna. Vidya Kamatu, but one who desires education. Girisham, the Lord of the Himalayas, Lord Shiva. Dampatya Artaha, for conjugal love. Uman Shatim, the chaste wife of Lord Shiva, known as Uma. Alright. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. One who desires to be absorbed in the impersonal Brahmajyoti effulgence should worship the master of the Vedas, Lord Brahma or Brihaspati, the learned priest. One who desires powerful sex should worship the heavenly king Indra, and one who desires good progeny should worship the great progenitors called the Prajapatis. One who desires good fortune should worship Durga Devi, the superintendent of the material world. One desiring to be very powerful should worship fire, and one who aspires only after money should worship the Vasus. One should worship the Rudra incarnations of Lord Shiva if he wants to be a great hero. One who wants a large stock of grain should worship Aditi. One who desires to attain the heavenly planets should worship the sons of Aditi. One who desires a worldly kingdom should worship Vishvadev. And one who wants to be popular with the general mass of population should worship the Sadhya demigod. One who desires a long span of life should worship the demigods known as Ashvini Kumaras. And a person desiring a strongly built body should worship the earth. One who desires stability in his post should worship the horizon and the earth combined. One who desires to be beautiful should worship the beautiful residents of the Gandharva planet. And one who desires a good wife should worship the Apsaras and the Urvashi society girls of the heavenly kingdom. One who desires domination over others should worship Lord Brahma, the head of the universe. One who desires tangible fame should worship the personality of Godhead. And one who desires a good bank balance should worship the demigod Varuna. If one desires to be a greatly learned man, he should worship Lord Shiva. And if one desires a good marital relation, he should worship the chaste goddess Uma, the wife of Lord Shiva. Purport. There are different modes of worship for different persons desiring success in particular subjects. The conditioned soul living in the purview of the material world cannot be an expert in every type of materially enjoyable asset, but one can have considerable influence over a particular matter by worshipping a particular demigod, as mentioned above. Ravana was made a very powerful man by worshipping Lord Shiva, and he used to offer severed heads to please Lord Shiva. He became so powerful by the grace of Lord Shiva that all the demigods were afraid of him, until he at last challenged the personality of Godhead, Sri Ramachandra, and thus ruined himself. In other words, all such persons who aspire after gaining some or all of the material objects of enjoyment, or the gross materialistic persons, are on the whole less intelligent, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. It is said there that those who are bereft of all good sense, or those whose intelligence is withdrawn by the deluding energy of Maya, aspire to achieve all sorts of material enjoyment in life by pleasing the various demigods, or by advancing in material civilization under the heading of scientific progress. The real problem of life in the material world is to solve the question of birth, death, old age, and disease. No one wants to change his birthright, no one wants to meet death, no one wants to be old or invalid, and no one wants diseases. But these problems are solved neither by the grace of any demigod, nor by the so-called advancement of material science. In the Bhagavad Gita, as well as in the Srimad Bhagavatam, such less intelligent persons have been described as devoid of all sense. Shukadeva Goswami said that out of 8,400,000 species of living entities, the human form of life is rare and valuable. And out of those rare human beings, those who are conscious of material problems are rarer still. And still more rare persons are those who are conscious of the value of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which contains the messages of the Lord and his pure devotees. Death is inevitable for everyone, intelligent or foolish. But Parikshit Maharaj has been addressed by the Goswami as Manishi, or the man of highly developed mind, because at the time of death he left all material enjoyment and completely surrendered unto the lotus feet of the Lord by hearing his messages from the right person, Shukadeva Goswami. But aspirations for material enjoyment by endeavoring persons are condemned. Such aspirations are something like the intoxication of the degraded human society. Intelligent persons should try to avoid these aspirations and seek instead the permanent life by returning home back to Godhead. Om Gyanatimanandasya Gananjanjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Dadati Swabarantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yukta Patakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnamam Shah Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raganaptam Mitam Tam Shijivam Savadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saritam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Bharan Sagana Lalitam Shri Vishakamitam Shah Nama Om Vishnu Paraya Krishna Vishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vikas Swamini Tinamani Nama Om Vishnu Paraya Krishna Vishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Devi Shesha Sunivadi Paskastara Satarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. All right, I will read the translation. All right. One who desires to be absorbed in the impersonal Brahmajyoti, effulgent, should worship the master of the Vedas, Lord Brahma, or Brihaspati, the learned priest. One who desires powerful sex should worship the heavenly king, Indra. And one who desires good progeny should worship the great progenitors, called the Prajapatis. One who desires good fortune should worship Durga Devi, the superintendent of the material world. One desiring to be very powerful should worship fire, and one who aspires only after money should worship the Vasus. One should worship the Rudra, incarnations of Lord Shiva, if he wants to be a great hero. One who wants a large stock of grain should worship Aditi. One who desires to attain the heavenly planets should worship the sons of Aditi. And one who desires a worldly kingdom should worship Vishvadev. And one who wants to be popular with the general mass of population should worship the Sadhya demigods. One who desires a long span of life should worship the demigods known as Ashvini Kumaras. And a person desiring a strongly built body should worship the earth. One who desires stability in his post should worship the horizon and the earth combined. One who desires to be beautiful should worship the beautiful residents of the Gandharva planet. And one who desires a good wife should worship the Apsaras and the Urvasi society girls of the heavenly kingdom. One who desires domination over others should worship Lord Brahma, the head of the universe. One who desires tangible fame should worship the personality of Godhead. And one who desires a good bank balance should worship the demigod Varuna. If one desires to be a greatly learned man, he should worship Lord Shiva. And if one desires a good marital relation, he should worship the chaste goddess Uma, the wife of Lord Shiva. Alrighty. Hare Krishna. So, there's a lot being said there in that translation. And in the purport also. Srila Prabhupada kind of like, well, not kind of like, he drives the point home with the last sentence of the purport, which he explains that intelligent persons should try to avoid these aspirations and seek instead permanent life by returning back home, back to Godhead. So, Srila Prabhupada drives the whole point. The point is that all these different fancy ways in which one can enjoy the material world is just ultimately is a distraction for everybody, and that it's not to actually to be aspired for. But Prabhupada also opens up his purport by explaining that there's different modes of worship for different people. So in the material world, you have all different shapes, sizes, colors, desires of living entities. So in the human form of life, people have different desires. That's why living entities come to the material world to enjoy. So naturally, if you want to, nobody wants to enjoy just like a little bit. Like, I want to go out and have like a good night, but I want it I want it just to be like an okay night, Usually people, especially that have anyways, I mean, there's different, you can go anywhere with it. But like if someone's like an alcoholic, they don't think, well, I'm going to go out, I just want to have like one drink. They think I want to drink as much as I possibly can. And I'm going to just take an Uber home anyway, so I don't even have to worry about driving or whatever like that. Or if someone is thinking, well, I want to get a girlfriend, but they don't think, who is like the ugliest girl I could possibly find? She's got she's missing half her face and she has one arm and whatever. She's got an extra ear coming out of her neck. So people aren't aspiring from that. They're thinking what is the pinnacle of beauty that I can get? And so they're seeing everything and they're analyzing, trying to figure out the topmost level of sense gratification that they can obtain. So previously, people, if they had those strong desires for that, they would worship the demigods to try to get those things. And so this whole list is given there of everything, of whatever people would want in those different modes. They would be attracted to that. Because some people, like Brahmanas, for instance, are in the mode of goodness. So, they would be more absorbed in kind of understanding the Vedas and knowledge. So they would, they may, if they were not on the highest platform of being a Vaishnava, they may be more inclined to different types of demigod worship. Like a Brahmana, for instance, is my speculation, but I don't think he'd be worshiping Indra to have intense sex life. He may be worshiping Saraswati or something like that, to have more knowledge and understand the Vedas. We see that was that Keshav Kashmiri, is that his name? That he was worshiping God, Saraswati, huh? Okay, yeah. And then he was, had all these, different slokas memorized and was very expert and things like that. And so he was engaged in worship like that. Whereas Ravana, for instance, was worshiping Lord Shiva, for power. And then we also see, Salva also worshiped Lord Shiva. He was eating ashes for so long to get, this spaceship, some power like that. Also too, I don't remember this, I think Rikasura, Banasura also, but Rikasura, I think was his name. He wanted to, get the benediction that anybody's hand he touched, he could, whatever, crack their head. Like you mentioned Banasura. he worshipped Lord Shiva to get those 1,000 arms. And there's many instances of that, of different individuals worshiping particular demigods to get a certain outcome. They have an aspiration in the heart, like that. So then there's so many different ways in the material world. Like someone that's farming, they need grains and things like that. So the idea here is that one shouldn't just think that that's like the complete focus of life. That that I have to worship this particular demigod to get this and that. This is the sunam bonum, whatever. And there's so many different things given here. The one thing mentioned here, and I mean it's a general thing actually. People people want money. They want a good spouse. They want if they have something good, they want to keep it. They have a lot of money in the bank. They want to keep that money in the bank, or they want more money in the bank. It's like basic stuff like that. Or they want good health. It's like all basic things in the material world. But Srila Prabhupada makes the point here, and it's interesting if you study the purport that a couple of things. One thing is that generally people don't pray for like easily available things. Like nobody's sitting there praying. I just want like grass or something. That's why that Bali Maharaj was a little bit. He was kind of pushing Vamanadev some, because Vamanadev was asking for 3 steps of land, and so that's not if you're going to ask something great from a great personality, it should be something like spectacular. But he was anyways, that's the Leela, that he was asking for 3 steps because he would expand his form. But generally people don't pray to demigods or seek with outside their immediate whatever like circle of influence, unless it's something that they feel that they're powerless to get. So immediately in that circumstance, one is acknowledging that there's someone higher authority than him. So obviously that has to come up to the highest authority is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But as the Bhagavad Gita explains, that there's so many slokas that Prabhupada cites here, 720, that those what is this? That the kamastasthaya hitagana, that those whose intelligence have been stolen by material desire surrender unto the demigods and follow particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. So that intelligence being stolen doesn't mean that that individual is stupid. Prabhupada, the kamastasthaya hitagana, it means that they have desires which are influencing them and capturing their intelligence and pulling them in a certain way. That's Krishna explains in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita was this verse. It comes not in the Bhagavatam class. I can't believe I'm not remembering it. That by contemplating object of the senses, pumsans gateshu jayate sangasatayate kama krodha. So that by contemplating, just initially there's some contemplation, one becomes attached, and then attached lust, kama develops, and then that lust, the desire is already there in the contemplation, but it is beginning to become influenced, and his intelligence is polluted. That's specific. I mean, that happens with all types of desires. It may be slow or it may be fast, but desires and contemplation influences one's intelligence. And intelligence isn't just understood to just be knowing 1, 2, 3 ABC. That's not what intelligence is. But intelligence is able to understand what is matter and what is spirit. Because if you're so highly intelligent, like we have big scientists today, or whatever, so many people, they know so many things, facts and figures, they can memorize, read a book once, have everything memorized. But then they think that the body is themselves are not very intelligent. So one whose intelligence is influenced in that way, he'll be, as Krishna is explaining in that purport, he'll be attracted to a particular demigod to worship. And so that's why we see that also. And then Krishna also gives that his mercy as he gives that blessings for that individual to be steady on that path. And then they have some faith also, because people too are getting those results. I don't know so much about this day and age, but previously people would worship the demigods, and then the demigods would reciprocate, so then their faith would increase. So then they would be, staunch, what's the word I'm looking for? Not devotees, but they would be staunch followers of that particular demigod. Right? And they would honor that demigod. But devoted in worship is specifically for Krishna, because I think Prabhupada was making a point in another purport. I don't know if I can find it, but he's making the point that like devotional service. If I had the book, I'd be able to find it. But anyways, but he was kind of pretty much saying that devotional. He makes a point in other purports, but specifically like worship. Bhajate is reserved for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not for any man or demigod. So one interesting thing also I was thinking about yesterday was that, just a side point, but so Krishna gives the faith for the living entity to worship a particular demigod and make that faith steady so that he engages in those austerities and all those things in order to obtain what he wanted. So anyways, I was thinking the other day that like you have Hiranyakashipu and Ravana, that Krishna inspired them within the heart to make their faith steady so that they could worship him and then attain those benedictions or whatever, and then kind of wreak havoc in that way. But it was by Krishna's mercy that they were able to obtain the power and execute those austerities. So there's so many different things that are mentioned here, different demigods to worship and different desires to have, and you could really take that verse and one with it, because maybe not so much today, but people there, that's what they're looking for more or less. We're going and we're presenting pure Krishna consciousness, surrender to Krishna, worship Krishna, understand who Krishna is, to conquer over the cycle of birth and death. But most people aren't interested in that. If you read something like that, maybe people would be interested, especially in Miami. Would they be interested in getting a lot of money, looking very beautiful, and having a lot of sex? And people would be very satisfied with that. And then, who knows? And then some offshoot starts and people are worshiping demigods for these things now. So that's what some people are attracted to. But the Srimad Bhagavatam doesn't just... there's so many other texts that are knocking this off. And then this verse is coming as culminating, and the understanding that the... highest benefit is to worship Vishnu because of other reasons. It's mentioned here slightly, and I don't have much to say about it. Maybe other devotees can comment on that. But it says, the one who desires tangible fame should worship the personality of Godhead. So it's kind of hinted a little bit there, beginning to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And tangible fame, my speculation with that is that that fame that isn't whatever destroyed with the material world, like eternal fame. Because even if one wants to be famous, any intelligent person knows that you can't be famous in all places, all times for eternity. It's just not going to happen, because the material world isn't eternal. Somebody may do some big things and put their name in the history books or whatever, just like we have so many great personalities or whatever so called. And what is this? Pretty much the American history starts with a couple of personalities, which is George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, and that's about the top ones that come to my mind, which is the beginning of greatness in American history. But what about the great Indian chiefs, the Native Americans before the Europeans came here? Columbus, he's also another big name in American history. Nobody knows. Did anybody know any famous Indian chiefs? No. Oh, you know a couple of, Crazy Horse. Yeah, you know some, huh? Yeah. Well, he knows that we have an expert. So those are there, but most people, those aren't really taught so much in history. They maybe teach a couple things here and there, but predominantly, you have, George Washington's monument. I'm sure there's a statue of him somewhere. And then his in all the history books, there's, at least when I used to see, they would have I forget what it was called, but they would have like the list of all the different presidents, the great dynasty. And then they would have the picture and the year that they were in office, and then like that, all the presidents. And then, whatever, you have Trump in there, and then Biden now, and then whoever will be the next president, he'll get his picture there of the great presidential dynasty of America. Huh? Oh, yeah. Whoops. So, yeah, you never know. Those coming soon to America near you. So that fame is temporary, because if and when, because will America be eternally existing forever? Probably not. because there's been no eternally existing society. The Vedic society has been there, but history, as we see, is fading away. And so anyway, so then, people will forget George Washington and Abraham Lincoln and all these people, and life will go on. So that fame isn't tangible. But the actual devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, their fame is eternal because they're connected with Krishna. So eternally, Nanda and Yashoda are known, and Krishna's friends, and Radharani, and Rukmini, and all the devotees are eternally related with Krishna are known, Uddhava. And they travel from universe to universe and spread their fame. Just speaking relatively, in the material world, one is limited. One can spread his glories, so far on the block, but one can't travel to another universe and become famous. And so also too, even this fame, like the Beatles, for instance, they were so famous for a particular point in time, and then nowadays it's like people kind of know about them. So actual fame, that's what I was thinking, that maybe that was hinting something like that actual fame, when it becomes a devotee of the Supreme Personality of God. And I think Ramananda Roy Prabhu says that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that if actual fame is to be a devotee of Krishna, the many things that he says. So that was kind of my understanding of that. So all these things are being mentioned, and even too, the first thing that's mentioned actually is one who desires to be absorbed in the impersonal Brahmajyoti. Interesting. Anyway, some people desire that, to be absorbed in that meditation, or to be liberated in that sense. But all these different things mentioned here, there's no mention of service under the Supreme Personality of Godhead, actually. And it's unfortunate. But the Srimad Bhagavatam, of course, obviously, it directs one in that position. And then in texts to come, I won't really touch on them, but it starts to be hinted at that. Maybe I'll mention one thing. In the next verse, it's mentioned that one should worship Lord Vishnu or his devotee for spiritual advancement and knowledge. So some things begin to be hinted at in the purports. Actually, each little text, they mention something about worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The text after that, I think text 9, it mentions that one who desires nothing in the material enjoyment should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's kind of like the conclusion of that. And then that famous verse, Akama Sarvakama Va, is stated after that. So, go back here. But nothing is mentioned in here. There's so many ways to enjoy the material world, but nothing is mentioned about serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The devotional service isn't directly being explained here yet. And that's unfortunate, actually. And people are so absorbed in so many different things materially. Srila Prabhupada makes a nice point in the purport. I think it's the second sentence. But he makes a point, so the conditioned soul living within the purview of the material world cannot be an expert in every type of materially enjoyable asset. So that's another thing, that you may desire so much to enjoy in the material world, and you may work so hard to become so rich, but then you become so rich and whatever. Truth of the matter is you're completely ugly, and you can't really change that. And some people, they try to change that, they get there's Botox and liposuction, and they try to make themselves look beautiful. But then people, they get work done on their face, but then, they look very pretty and very young, but then they can't smile. They have like this plastic look to them. Anyways, whatever. And so, and then one may be very beautiful, but then one may have the karma that, whatever. They get, one may be very beautiful, but they have the karma to get a bad spouse. So they have to suffer in that way. So one can't enjoy in full all those different aspects of the material world. Just like Hiranyakashipu, for instance, he got, so much power, so much sex, so much money, so much control, but then, he didn't have absolute sovereignty because he didn't have control over his son. And he also, too, he wasn't able to control his son in the sense of, telling him what to do. He was rebellious in that regard, but he also wasn't able to control the information that was coming to his son. Because even when he was away doing his austerities, he was powerful at a particular point in time. His power had a beginning and it had an end. He was, that's why he went and did austerities, because he wasn't, he was powerful but not, all power. He he wasn't powerful enough. He could have been stronger, and he recognized that. And that's what people go to the gym, whatever. I could be stronger. It could be better. So even there was that lacking in him, that it could be better. I could be stronger. It could be better, or whatever. I have to defeat Vishnu. So an individual has his power as a beginning, a middle, and an end. But Vishnu's power doesn't have a beginning, middle, and end. That's what is explained. That's why the whole pastime with Krishna and Putana, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always powerful. Has his opulences in full always. He's not that at a particular point in time that Krishna did some austerities and became God. That's completely false. It's completely stupid, and it's not what any of the Shastras teach. So Vishnu's power, Vishnu's opulence, everything about the Supreme Personality of Godhead is unlimited, and it doesn't come into creation at a certain time and place. It manifests. Vishnu's, just like sometimes Sudarshan Chakra, it seems that the demigods give that to him, or when the turning of the milk ocean, that the goddess of fortune appeared. So it seems sometimes like Krishna's opulences and his things they're coming to him, but they're simply manifest and unmanifest. They're eternally existing. But that's not the case in the material world. And there's so many examples of that. When Lord Ramachandra, he went and he was given the bow and things like that. And his weapons, he was taught that by Vishvamrita, the mantras. And Krishna also, he has his horses and his associates, all these different things. But it's important to know, and that's the same with the demigods, that their opulence has a beginning, middle, and an end. So that's the position in the material world. So one important, it's pretty obvious, but at least in the Sanskrit, there was one word that was mentioned practically in every single line we were chanting. What was that particular word? No, not yajna. Oh, yeah. Kama, yeah. Desire. So that was cited again and again. Practically in every line it was mentioned. Kama, kama, kama. So kama generally is understood just to mean just like desire, just like wanting something. It's not necessarily always just sex desire. So that desire. So that's the understanding that living entities have these particular desires, and they're desiring something. They're wanting something. There's some need, and so this need is impelling them in the material world to enjoy in different ways. And so, if one doesn't move in this, not that it's needed. So there's different ways of moving in the material world. So one doesn't have to do all whatever the Vedas recommend. If you want something, worship this demigod. So if one follows like the Vedic paradigm, just in short, one will get elevated because one will execute Vedic injunctions and one will get purified. And that's like one aspect of like going through elevation. Though that's not the highest, but that's a lot better than just, gross sense gratifications of karmic activities because one's sinful. So better than being sinful is to be pious and regulated sense gratification, follow some particular rules and manners like this. And then one is doing that, and hopefully one comes in contact with the devotee, and then he can explain, you're worshiping, you're doing this, you're doing that. Like, why are you worshiping this demigod? Better worship Krishna because, you're worshiping, for a good spouse, you'll get married for so long, and then bust, she dies, you die. So is that the perfection of life? And one with a little bit of intelligence will understand, actually, you're right. And so that's the point. Prabhupada makes that point in the purport, that no one's asking about birth, death, old age, and disease. Because even if you become, most stronger than the strongest, you become powerful. You become eternal. But everybody around you has to die. So then you're not completely satisfied. You're eternal, figuratively speaking. But then everybody around you has to die. So then what's the happiness in that? You live forever, but then you just see all your friends die. And then you can't get, and then whatever. And then you become psychologically deranged, and maybe they'll write a textbook or a psychology book about the man who lives forever, but he has a complex that he can't get close to anybody. Because he he knows that everybody will die, but then whatever. So like that. Anyways, there's some jokes, but so all these different things, and then too, whatever. Or one may get one may get so much money, or so much fame, but then with that fame becomes so much headache because just like Prabhupada would say that but the people would be chanting Mahatma Gandhi ki jai all night outside of his house. He's trying to sleep, and so he couldn't sleep. But then we may be thinking, like, I want to be famous. People were saying Jai my name, Jai Koki, Jai Koki. Be like, yeah, that's pretty good. I'm liking it. I want to know what that feels like. You were telling me the other day. Anyways, not to name any names, but that it feels really good when the devotees serve you, and then they give you what they want and they reciprocate, and that's like a very amazing experience. So we may want to know it. We may have that feeling. Oh, I want to be a guru. I want to I don't want to just be a guru, but I want to be the guru. I want to I want everybody to recognize that I'm the Jagat Guru. It's not enough to just be local guru, or city guru, or but I want to be the guru of, not just I don't want to be the guru of Iceland or the guru of, Australia, sorry, or the guru of Antarctica. I want to be the guru of India and of America and of Europe and Russia. That's opening up more and more. China, I want to be the guru of China. So then it's then the crazy thing, then the fame and stuff goes. So then then one becomes that position and think, wow, this is so difficult. It's people are chanting my glories, it's too much. So then, whatever, then the headache is there, and then whatever, then it's well, yeah. And anyways, when you get to that point, I don't know what you need at that particular point in time to deal with that. you need the mercy of the Lord. God, please help me to deal with all the fame and success that comes with being a guru. So then, anyways, there's so many crazy things that come up. So the thing is that there's birth, death, old age, and disease. When we get in all these positions, oh, I know what it is. When he gets all the fame, and then he can't keep it because he has to die. Or then he's, or whatever, he take another body, and then it's well, I worked so hard for all this fame. That's the thing anyways, not to say any names, but you shouldn't name the names, but the Dalai Lama, he was making the point that, that there should be no more Dalai Lamas because he's achieved such a high degree of fame. What other Dalai Lama will be able to do that?
Wow.
That's what he said. I remember hearing that. So it's interesting. Yeah, so then it's, so then what, anyways, not that Buddhism has any spiritual teachings to give, ultimately, it's just confusion. But the idea of the teaching and the culture is well, let's throw all that away because I've achieved such a high degree of fame, no one will be able to achieve that anymore. So then it's been completely lost, actually, sidetracked by fame. Buddhism, ultimately, it teaches that there is no God, that there is no self, and that there's ultimately nothing. So the conclusion of that philosophy is that you should just blow your brains out because there's no point in living. That's the conclusion of Buddhism. When oh no, you be nonviolent. Why be nonviolent? Why be truthful? Why be honest? Why be peaceful? Why be all these things if ultimately there's nothing behind anything? Just interacting with a bunch of chemicals, right? So it's just anyways, Buddhism it's craziness actually. It doesn't make any tangible sense if you actually analyze it. And then they have the thing, well then there's the Buddha comes back and reincarnates, but then if it's ultimately nothing and you die and there's nothing and then it's just, whatever, void, then what is coming back exactly? What is that? What is, and then how do they explain that? I don't know. They have to make up some philosophy because that makes no sense. So the living entity has this desire. I wonder if there was who's got this mirrored here? Nali. I'm gonna see if I can find if I have a photo I wanted to send. I don't know if I have it actually because I deleted a lot of stuff. But let me see here if I have it. I don't think I have it. I could maybe take a screenshot of it and send it to you. Oh, here it is. I'm going to send you a picture, Nally. Sorry. I'm just going to I'll post it in the ashram and then you pull it up from there. So the central point of this verse is desire. All right, there we go. So then there's this nice picture here. Anyways, so this particular picture, and then I'll bring up that purport also. So this particular picture is from the Bhagavad Gita, and it's the 15 chapters, verses 1, 2, and 3. And so I was thinking yesterday when I was reading this, thinking about the desire, but so the thing is that this verse is kind of like saying like that. So, oh, there it goes. Oh, that's nice. So the living entity has desire, and that's the thing. So by associating with the material world, there's so many different verses, but when it comes to contact with the modes, and then desire, and then whatever, you get in one situation to another. So this particular picture shows, and then it's got right here, and I didn't recognize it some years later, but it says desire there. And so if whatever you start desiring the material world, that gets yourself into certain circumstances. And anyways, so the verses explain that there's a banyan tree with its roots upwards and branches downwards. And so this picture, I was looking at it and thinking about it last night, but the verse itself doesn't actually mention explicitly anything. Like if you look at the actual translation of the material world, of the spiritual world, it's implied. And so the devotees, maybe under Srila Prabhupada's guidance, probably especially in the early days, but he really brought all these verses to life and planted, Goloka Vrindavan at the top, and then showed the reflection, and the Brahmas being the topmost post, and then all getting down there, and then you got a iguana, like I saw yesterday, running in the backyard, and you got a dog down there, and all the animals, and then sense objects, and you have some guy that's murdering somebody right there, and all the impious acts of bringing one down and the pious acts up, Vedic hymns, liberation, so all these things. And so ultimately, the desire that the living entity has, that's like the main pivot point. So in the material world, we're engaging in Krishna consciousness, trying to purify our desire so that we want a desire to serve Krishna, to serve the devotees, to engage in Krishna consciousness. I'll read purport or a paragraph here from the first verse of the 15th chapter, and Prabhupada talks a little bit about desire here. So anyways, so just to kind of give a little background. So yesterday I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, where is desire actually mentioned in these verses? Because, I know those verses, Arupa Mashesha Tatopa Labhyate. And over here you actually have the devotee with attachment. He's cutting from the material world. So anyways, so I was thinking about that, and then I was talking with Mitravan Prabhu about it, and I was like, where's desire actually mentioned in these verses? I was looking at the Sanskrit and everything, and then I turned the book, and then when I turned the page, it was like, it just stuck out to me, and there was like the one sentence that where Prabhupada was saying that. I'll read that sentence, but I'll read the full paragraph here. So, now there is no ready experience in this world of a tree situated with its branches down and its roots upwards, but there is such a thing, that tree can be found beside a reservoir of water. We can see that the trees on the bank reflect the water with their branches down and roots up. In other words, the tree of this material world is only a reflection of the real tree of the spiritual world. This reflection of the spiritual world is situated on desire, just as a tree's reflection is situated on desire. Desire is the cause of things being situated in this material light, being situated in this reflected material light. One who wants to get out of material existence must know this tree thoroughly through analytical study. Then he can cut off his relationship with it. So Prabhupada makes that point here, that the reflection of the spiritual world is situated on desire, just as a tree's reflection is situated on the water. Desire is the cause of things being situated in this reflected material light. So desire, that's like the main pivot point, which is being expressed in this verse, and which is kind of like more or less been the topic even in the previous chapters about what is one desiring. And His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Maharaj gives a very nice class asking. It was some years ago. I really like it. But what's your, like? I don't know if it's what's your aspiration or what's your highest aspiration. I think it's what's your highest aspiration. So in that class, he pretty much explaining what do you desire, like what is it that you want? What is it that we want in Krishna consciousness? We may someone devotee talks to us, and we may say, oh, my only wish is that my consciousness be purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. And then we kind of like repeat everything, I only desire pure devotional service, or, like that, or I don't want any wealth women. But we kind of like, just repeat it, just because we've heard it so much. But is that actually what we're desiring? We have to be careful. We have to be aware. Are we attracted to things that we shouldn't be attracted to? And then feeling, willing, I want this, I need this, I have to have that. So we have to be situated in Krishna consciousness in proper association. And our desires have to be, because we may be wanting something, and so we should understand that, I may want something that may not be good for me. So then we have to control our senses and engage in the process of Krishna consciousness and purify that desire. And devotees will help us also. But we have to be conscious of what we're desiring. And we have to be aware too, because desire can be very subtle. Just like, we're making jokes about, whatever, like being the guru, the guru of the world. So, but that may be there. And then, whatever, we're at a temple and everything's going nicely and this and that. But then someone doesn't respect us properly. And then we're all fried out for like weeks on end because, I wasn't recognized or whatever. And then it's like we start thinking funny things. Or we get angry because we feel that, that we're like entitled to a certain way or certain thing or whatever it may be. Or it could be something gross, whatever. Just like, we're not all perfect, but then you go out and we may have, desires from, so many things. And then there's, going to the beach can just be a big headache or whatever it may be. But if we have strong association, we may have those, different desires, but then the association can keep us in check and keep us balanced. And then so we don't act out on those. But we have to keep ourselves in strong association. Because you go out with materialistic association, they'll, whatever, what is it, if you see something you like, go and get it, or whatever, or whatever it may be, or, who cares if you chant your rounds? You chant your rounds tomorrow, or, whatever. You made a promise to your guru, like what, who's a guru? Why did you promise a guru? People don't keep promises this day and age. What are you, like 3 years old? Like that pinky promise people would make and things like that. But devotee association will help us, keep us in check and keep us on path and desire the proper thing actually. Because we come into Krishna consciousness, we don't know what to desire. We think that, whatever, the perfection of life. We think so many things. We have so many ideas, so many conclusions. It's like, it's open heart surgery. It's like a very delicate situation. It's very complicated and, whatever. We actually don't recognize coming into Krishna consciousness how seriously contaminated we are. We think, hey, I'm doing pretty good, like I came, I was like really spiritual growing up, I believed in God and I did a little meditation and, like I was a vegetarian and this and that. And, I'm like doing pretty good. But then it's like when we kind of skim the surface a little bit, then we see that attachment and that envy and that strong inclination to enjoy the senses is there. But it was just in a polite way, like please and thank you as, whatever, we do the sense gratification. So we don't realize, how infected we are with material desire, because that attraction is there in living entity's heart, but by good association, that can be rooted out completely. And that's the idea. It has to be rooted out completely with no trace left. Because otherwise, just like Sukadeva Goswami gives the example in the fifth canto, the first chapter. Is it fifth canto? No, sixth canto, first chapter. So he explains that an individual, he may, engage in austerities, this and that, knowledge, brahmacharya, all these different things. But the root actually isn't destroyed. So then that can come up again. But he explains that only by pure devotional service, kechit kevala bhaktya, that can everything, all sinful desires, everything can be wiped out by the rising of the sun dissipates the fog. So that's what we're trying to do in Krishna consciousness. We're trying to just stay put, stay connected, stay focused, and allow the process to work in the association of devotees. And so kama, desire is there. So we're not trying to become desireless. We're simply trying to purify and desire everything for the benefit of Krishna, for the benefit of the gurus, for the benefit of the devotees. So that's there. So if, whatever. If you want to be very beautiful, then, if you're a man, you want to be very beautiful. I mean, you can dress up like a woman and perform amazing plays for the pleasure of devotees. That's there. If, and then Mataji too, if they want to be very beautiful, I mean, there's room for that. If you want to, be famous, then be famous as, the most humble devotee. The servant of everybody. If you want to have a lot of money, you can do that, but then give it all to Krishna. Give it all to your guru. Become a billionaire, more. I don't know who the richest person on the planet is. Become more rich than them times 2, and then give it all to your guru. If you want a big house, you can get a big house. Just make sure devotees are there every day of the week, and you have a Sunday feast, and the properties are in someone else's name. That so many things are there. So the devotee can desire all these different opulences for the pleasure of Krishna, to engage in Krishna service. Otherwise, there's no need for it. There's no need, for money, power, fame, all these different things if it's not being engaged in Krishna service. And so we see, like with Srila Prabhupada and his disciples, Srila Prabhupada, he became famous somewhat, but he, more than him becoming famous, he increased Krishna's fame. He did that service. So much money he had, but he didn't keep it all in his personal bank account. So much power he had, but he didn't unnecessarily exercise that. And he would engage devotees in services and things like that. On this verse. But, like that we can see. And able to keep that steadiness, so much intelligence, so much of everything. And so when engaged in Krishna consciousness, Krishna bestows those opulences to a devotee, so that that devotee can, if that devotee needs that for that particular service. Because Krishna also explains, and this is the last point, as engaging in Krishna consciousness, we may desire material things. We just whatever, for whatever reason. So Krishna, his mercy also too is that if we're desiring something that we shouldn't have, he will either give us that thing that we want materially in such a way that we don't ever ask for it again, or he may not give us that thing because it'll pull us away from our devotional service, or we may have everything that we want and then he pulls everything away from us, so just to exclusively engage the devotee in his devotional service even further. So anyways, I'll stop there. If there's any questions or comments about anything. Hare Krishna. Yes.
Brahmanas do worship this.
For what exactly?
Huh?
For what?
Well, first, try to understand that the demigods they supply us with different necessities.
Oh, rain, huh?
So, yes.
Oh, okay.
And therefore the Indra Yajna was being performed. And the Brahmanas were performing it.
Okay.
And the wives of the
Vaishyas are asking the Brahmanas, but that's the Brahmana duty anyways,
Oh.
is that they do the worship on the behalf of the Kshatriyas, on the behalf of the Vaishyas. And then they themselves also personally worship. Plus, the Brahmanas, they have daily rituals
That makes
where
sense.
they offer oblations and prayers to all the different demigods, because basically you can consider the Brahmanas in one sense as it's a very rough speculation. It's philosophical. They're like the tax collectors on the behalf of the demigods. And what they do is, the tax collector doesn't keep any money, but he collects all of it and then offers it to the government. In this case, the Brahmanas, they themselves pay their taxes in the form of worshipping the different demigods, and then they act as priests for the rest of the society. And they recommend, oh no, you should worship this, you should worship, therefore you will be happy like this, you'll be happy like that. This is the Karma Kandiya Brahmanas. And they're huge. I mean, they used to play a huge role in Varnashram society.
Yeah.
So Indra is the chief of the demigods. He had a huge share. He would get actually the greatest share.
Yeah.
There, of course, Shiva, Durga, and all, they're higher than him. But Krishna, but Indra had one. It's a technical point.
Yeah, thank you for that. It makes sense because just like if you kind of think about it, all the other castes or orders, they wouldn't study the Vedas, so you have to like obtain that knowledge by studying the Vedas.
Yeah.
And so then the Brahmanas
The Brahmanas
teach that or show that or help with that.
Yeah.
So they would know that. Thank you. You something?
In many lectures of Prabhupada, says that a brahmachari may be there, a person who's practicing karma kanda or whatever. He may be there and he may be performing all the brahmachari activities. But in his heart he's meditating upon like Indra and the enjoyment that he can have.
Yeah.
So they also worship, Indra to even have strong sex life. But they don't want to have it in this because anyone who's intelligent will actually understand that even if you want to enjoy, this situation is not a good situation to enjoy. That's why, I remember, when I first came to America, I was thinking, these people are really, blowing all, not when I first came to Atlanta. I remember seeing, big trees and, nine people, boy and girl, sitting down, enjoying, relaxing, chatting with each other and making it, so amazing. Seeing these schools are, even they don't know how to enjoy. You want to enjoy here, how much sex life can you enjoy? It's better. This place especially is meant for tapasya.
Yeah.
Tapasya, if you want to go back home, back to Garrett. Tapasya, if you even want to enjoy your material senses.
Yeah.
This is not the place for it. It is just really, it's just meant for tapasya. You perform everything, and then even if you want to enjoy, you go to the higher realms and enjoy. But here it's so foolish to try to enjoy here. That's why even those who are in the Vedic line, even if they want to enjoy, they don't try to grossly enjoy here. They worship these demigods even to go.
Yeah.
Even Brahmanas worship them. Even so many people practice brahmacharya, strict laws of brahmacharya, meditating upon all the pleasures they can experience when they go to Indra Lokam.
Yeah.
That's why Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Svarga Lokam Vishalam.
Yeah.
They can enjoy Mishine Punya Martya Lokam Vishalam. They have to come back. Ultimately what they attain, Gatagatam Kama Kama. But the Brahmanas are there, they're practicing brahmacharya, become sannyas and all these things, but they want to go to Indra's planet. And you even see the Ramayana, I think it was, I'm forgetting which rishi it was, that Rama is approaching his hermitage, and then right before he approaches his hermitage, he actually sees Indra with his 1,000 green horse chariot rising above from there and going back into the heavenly planets, and he goes and he finds out what happens. And it said in the Ramayana, it said that rishi, Indra was so satisfied with all the pious activities of the rishi that he personally wanted to take him to the heavenly planet. But he sent Indra away and he told him, no, I want to go to Vaikuntha. You remember reading that? Yeah, so that's that, so these things are there too.
Yeah.
Just some of the points you're making with name and fame and all this, and just listening to this lecture of Guru Maharaj in this leadership in Krishna consciousness, essentially that he's talking about this subtle nature of name and fame. It's and I was mentioning this to you as well when you were asking me about that lecture. He's mentioning the point that even that desire to be known as a great servant, I want to be you're serving the spiritual master in a great way, but eventually I want to be known as the greatest servant of my spiritual master. He was saying that even desire you have to be really careful with, that desire to be known. And so I was just along those lines, I was thinking how difficult it is actually, how devotional service, even if one is a brahmachari all his life or whatever he is, sannyasi or whatever, it's so difficult because it's hard to recognize your own faults and where is the problem, where you're going wrong. Because sometimes we can just say, oh, I'm good, I'm following devotional service, I'm feeling purified and all this. But actually, we see Narottam Das Thakur, and it's we shouldn't be Guru Maharaj often makes the point in those lectures that we shouldn't be feeling oh yes, I'm getting, he's feeling that he's realizing he's an artist and how fallen he is. And I was feeling that too. I was all this idea of that I'm getting purified and I'm becoming more advancing in Krishna consciousness, this idea may not be completely true. It's just my gosh, I should be realizing more how much sex desire I have, how much ego I have, how much problems I have. And I was saying that is the main issue. We're not able to recognize that, and then when we don't have devotees around us we can tell us those things, then it's even a bigger problem. or we may have such a big ego that nobody's able to tell us anything. And it's like it becomes very difficult to go back to Godhead. Then we see devotees falling out here. And, huh?
Fix the camera.
I don't know.
He doesn't want people to see him because he wants to be humble.
Yeah. So,
No recognition.
so this is the difficulty of advancing in Krishna consciousness. Is like with that name, fame. It's so subtle. It's like you can't recognize it, and it takes other devotees who are more advanced to kind of recognize that and pull that out of you. And then it takes like humility from the devotee to like allow that devotee to kind of like chastise him and give that recognition and actually like submit unto that devotee like that. It's just like it's such a difficult thing. It's like because there's like so many aspects to recognizing that desire, and then also being humble enough to be like corrected. It's just like it's really difficult, and the other devotee is feeling that if I correct this person, he won't be like disturbed, that he will actually accept it and such and such. It's like such a realm. I'm like realizing that's the main difficulty, like actually coming to that level of humility of like recognizing all these things.
I was thinking of just this whole like photo you were sharing about the desire.
Yeah.
And just kind of on this topic of like devotee association. How it's so, I was just hearing this point recently that it's so important to maintain good relations. Devotees and specifically devotees, because if you don't maintain good relations, then you're committing offenses, and then from those offenses, material desires sprout, and then from there it's just like it goes out basically. So it's just along this line of like the devotee association, you're saying that being observant and careful of one's desires, with the proper things, purifying the desires, and maintain good relations with everyone.
Yeah.
Prabhupada said that.
I had another technical question. So, here in the word to word, it says Varuna, the treasurer of the demigods. Although actually, if you search for Varuna everywhere else in the Bhagavatam or the Bhagavad Gita, he's said to be the controller of the oceans and water, things like that. And whereas Kuvera is the king of the Yakshas, leader of the Yakshas, he is the treasurer of the demigods. So, now the word Prachetasam is used for Varuna in other places also. So therefore I'm curious to know, the word-to-word translations, were they done by Srila Prabhupada or were they done by his disciples? Do you have any technical knowledge about that?
I don't know, like I know I'm pretty sure they were done by his disciples, but I don't know when they started.
Second canto is probably Prabhupada.
Yeah, because I know the first.
Second is Prabhupada.
It must be. I mean,
How do you say that though?
Pradyumna, he like started editing. I mean, like heck.
I think he joined, I think in 68 or 69 or something.
Like mid 68 or so, and he was just beginning to like learn Sanskrit.
I mean, wasn't Prabhupada doing
And
Prabhupada
Prabhupada handwrote this.
Huh?
Prabhupada handwrote this canto. Part of this canto.
Prabhupada handwrote it?
Yeah, you can tell by the way it's written. He started dictating halfway
No,
through.
but that's the purport. The point is
The word for
whether
word.
Prabhupada worked on the word for word or not at that point of time, or he reserved it for a later point of time.
I don't know.
By my like speculation, it will be Prabhupada that wrote this because they were printing this chapter by chapter.
Really?
Yeah. So
He was
like,
doing it in the beat.
so it wouldn't be that like he wouldn't like translate the whole thing to get the purports and then like wait. Because it's chapter by chapter.
As
It's
it
not
came out.
speculation. I don't think Pradyumna was working on this at that time. He was studying Sanskrit, so that was engaged.
Well, we also have to check the edits that were done after that.
Yeah.
If that word to word translation doesn't match with anything else in the Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita. And it's not in the Sanskrit also.
What's in the Sanskrit?
It just says Prachetasam.
That's it. That's. I'm trying to find it.
I'll tell you.
I gotta find it.
So, Kosha Kama Prachetasam. So Kosha refers to wealth. Kamaha, desire, Prachetasam.
It's
Prachetasam.
not, I'll tell you what, I just looked up, like I have like the first, like 2.1 that was released. Like
The
the very
original.
first one.
Yeah, the original book.
And it says right here, the treasure of heaven known as Kubera.
That's what I was thinking.
Oh,
Yeah.
so they changed it later. I think that's a mistake.
Definitely.
Maybe you should report it to the BBC.
Dravida Prabhu.
Maybe they should.
Wow. Changed books.
But the translation says one who desires a good bank balance should worship Guru.
Kuver.
Varuna.
But the word says
Kubera.
Kubera.
Oh, maybe that's why they must have messed that up. Word for word says Kuvera, and the translation says Varuna.
So they would have changed that Kubera to Varuna, but then they didn't remove the other part, which is treasure. I don't know. Anyways, they got to look into this. Little minor difficulties.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there was something online, right? Online?
No, they retracted it.
Took it
Let me
back.
see. Oh, here we go. Can you? Oh, here we go. I thought they took it back. So it says, Pranam devotees, I often heard that a room...
Who's this from?
Huh? This is
Oh, devotees man.
devotees, yeah. Nana. Oh, hang on. I went away.
Comments is pretty bad.
So, Pranam devotees, I've often heard that a room seems dirtier when it's being cleansed in reference to why our material desires become more gross as we take to Krishna consciousness. Can we expand on this?
What's the question?
That's it.
Basically, when you're cleaning the room initially, it gets dirtier than it was before. So it
Seems.
seems like, so like same thing when you're practicing Krishna consciousness, it seems like anarthas are coming out and you're like, anarthas are more apparent than they were before.
My understanding of that, in short, has just been like, that means the desires are there, and just like at glance, the roommate, not look that dirty because of whatever, there's like a couple clothes on the table, but then you like look under the bed and there's like dead animals like
Oh my
like
God.
trash from like last year.
That's you.
So it's, generally like before Krishna consciousness, we never made any endeavor to purify our consciousness or like to become free of like sex desire or like all these things. It was just like whatever, it's just indulge. So it can seem to be dirtier, but those desires have already been there, and it's like we're just becoming aware of like that's what actually needs to be done because we didn't understand what needed to be cleaned previously. So the desires are there, and they've been existing, and they're coming in our purview now. Okay.
Yeah.
Bhagavatam.
Jai!